Turkey has quietly become Europe's strongest NATO member, and that terrifies Western strategists. Some people, I'm sure, will straight up do a double take or spit out their drink. Muffles, what is this bias now? First it was Russia, then it was Iran. Who told you that Turkey is the strongest in Europe? Calm down, I'll explain. With the second largest army in NATO after only America, ranking ninth globally in military power and exceeding by 2% their GDP defense spending target, just like NATO wants of their members. Turkey isn't just pulling its own weight, it's carrying the alliance, hard carry in Europe. But here's where it gets interesting. Turkey is 99% Muslim, bridges Europe and Asia, is smack in the middle, right? Is the crossroads of continents and maintains complex relationships across the Middle East that don't always align with Western interests in the far west. I talk about geopolitics a lot. No surprise there. I know you guys will know that by now. And I say nations operate how they feel they must for their benefit, or the benefit of their state. But that doesn't mean they are happy operating that way. Why I mention this? In Turkey's case, that means they may not want to lead NATO in whatever fight it might get into in the future. As America signals its pivot away from European defense, NATO's center of gravity is shifting eastward to Ankara, Turkey's capital, because so much of Europe's military-industrial complex is in Turkey or Turkey, and that's causing sleepless nights in London, Paris, and Berlin. Why? Well, there's an unspoken fear. If Russia moves against NATO, say in the Baltic states of Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, etc., or in the Moldovan region of Transnistria, breakaway state, before the European powers rebuild their gutted military-industrial complexes that they've, left empty because after the Second World War, America basically said, "Don't worry, I got you, B." Right? If they don't have time to rebuild their military-industrial complexes, will Turkey actually fight for them? If they did on NATO's side, Western Europe would breathe a long sigh of colonial relief. Thank God we send non-Europeans to fight for us again. Turkish Bayraktar drones proved their worth in Ukraine. Turkey has their own fifth-generation stealth fighter jets now to rival the US F-35. The Turkish one is the TF Khan. And Turkey's defense industry is absolutely booming. They're selling their arms. So advanced are their arms. They're selling their arms to other countries, Malaysia, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia. But it's about loyalty. When push comes to shove, will a predominantly Muslim nation with historic ties to Russia and regional ambitions in Syria and the Eastern Mediterranean sacrifice its soldiers for countries that spent decades keeping Turkey out of the EU, for example? Sacrifice Turks on the front line to fight for a NATO that America formed, but then that same America refused to share F-35 fighter technology with Turkey after decades of Turkey wanting it? Stringing it along for decades before deciding, yeah, it's too risky to give it to these Turks. They're a bit shady. They're half Middle Eastern. Are we sure we want to do that? And then the Turks said, okay, screw it. I'll make my own fifth-generation fighter jet. Let's say the Turks stand down, coming to some agreement, the presidents Erdogan and Putin deciding Eastern Europe needs a shake-up and Turkey's not going to get involved. What then? The mathematics, guys, are brutal. Remove American support for NATO and remove Turkish participation from NATO, and NATO's eastern flank becomes as limp as a wet noodle. A house of cards, at best. France, Germany, and the UK combined can't match Turkey's conventional military strength in numbers and in industrial capacity. And even those countries might hesitate to ship off troops to flipping Estonia in Eastern Europe, assuming their industrial capability will allow them to actually sustain a conflict with Russia. And for Russia, the Baltics don't need to be shipped off too, right? Russia is next to the Baltics, literally next door. They even have a suppressed Russian-speaking minority on the border of all those countries that they could justify to take action against the Baltic states officially. Meanwhile, Turkey plays a masterful balancing act, fulfilling NATO obligations while maintaining dialogue with Moscow, supporting Ukraine with drones while buying Russian oil and gas. This is Turkish strategic brilliance. They found a way to mosey on into the inside of NATO, the soft underbelly of the West, as it were. And now from there, they are perfectly set to be kingmaker in Eastern Europe. Their economy, I'm sorry, I'm breathless, I went for a run, jog I should say. Their economy is developed. Their tech and defense sectors are robust. I lost count of was listing, they enjoyed the advancements that come with being part of the West under America's sphere of influence. But now, as the world shifts to the east towards multipolarity and a rising global south led by China, Turkey may be set to switch sides, benefiting in the last world order and then benefiting in the next. As for NATO planners watching Russian build-up, the question is, can we flip and rely on Turkey as our eastern bastion? Or, when called upon, when most needed, when we desperately need the Turks, will they stand down, making the ultimate decision at that moment to flip sides? Time will tell, as it always does. And I'll be here to report to you the news and the analysis, unbiased and without the Western spin. And this is just a coincidence. I'm not wearing a shirt in the colours of the Turkish flag or anything. I'm Mahfouz, and I'll see you on the next one.